So earnest money is one of the most important parts of a real estate contract in Washington, and most buyers and sellers don't really understand how powerful it is. So, Joe, will you tell us what is earnest money according to the contract and when does it get delivered?
Sure. The simplest way to describe that is earnest money is essentially collateral. It's part of the contract. It's attached to the contract when you deliver the offer to the seller's agent. If offer is accepted, earnest money is usually due 2 days after mutual acceptance or all terms are agreed upon. You do have the option, if needed, to extend that time. You just have to have the seller's agreement. In the event earnest money is not delivered on time, according to the contract, it doesn't automatically blow the contract up. Though the buyers are in default, if they do turn it in a timely manner and the sellers are okay with it, the contract moves forward with all the same considerations of the original contract. However, if the seller in that time wants out, say somebody comes in with a better offer, they can then blow the deal up and the buyer has no protection. Essentially, you would forfeit the earnest money. However, if it's not been delivered, the seller would really have a hard time to retain that. One of the questions that's always accompanied with earnest money is, okay, I put all this money up front. What happens when the deal closes? That's simple. That earnest money just goes towards the down payment that you were already going to bring. So essentially, earnest money is collateral in the beginning, but it's money that you're already going to bring to the table at closing.
Yeah, a little skin in the game. Ashley, how much earnest money should buyers realistically plan to set aside in our market today?
Yeah, great question. So, there's King County and Snohomish County, and often it's anywhere between 2 and 5% of the purchase price. But, it all depends on competition. If there's, multiple people bidding on the home, then they want to kind of see that earnest money grow and be a bigger number. Then there's questions about releasing that earnest money so that it goes straight into the seller's pocket right away. But typically 2 to 5% is the going for earnest money.
Yeah. So make sure you have a little bit of extra cash set aside to get that home buying process started. Chris, how do we use earnest money to make an offer stronger if we were in like a multiple offer situation or, something like that?
In multiple offer situations, actually, earnest money is a really big lever for buyers. Larger earnest money definitely signals more confidence. There's several things you can do with the earnest money. Early release of the earnest money is a very strong signal that you're confident that the deal is going to go through. So it kind of implores you to perform. You can also use earnest money as psychology when it comes to the offer as well. Like Ashley had mentioned, 2 to 5% of earnest money is really, really strong earnest money. It shows that we're very confident if you release it as well. To us, earnest money is a signal of seriousness. We can structure it in a way that shows commitment while still being very responsible during the due diligence period.
So the more money we throw in the pool, the better it looks, right?
Absolutely.
All right. So guys, here's the thing I think a lot of people really want to know. How in danger is the earnest money? What happens to it if it falls apart? How does a buyer lose their earnest money?
I'll tell you, it's actually difficult if I'm your buyer's agent because I'm going to fight for you. I'm going to try to protect that earnest money. But there is a form that shows where the earnest money goes, and it's instructions basically for escrow to where that should go if the deal isn't going to go through. But you're the seller, you can always disagree with that, and then it would go into arbitration. So that is not where you want to be.
Most offers have contingencies built in, and that really protects the earnest money. So when you're representing a buyer, the most important thing to do is to know what contingencies are there and what the timelines are and use those timelines. Some examples are going to be like your inspection contingency, title contingency. Longest typically is the financing contingency. There's all sorts of contingencies. And so really knowing what those contingencies are, what those timelines are. If the buyer performs in a timely fashion and wants out of the deal, then they can get their earnest money as long as the timelines are monitored and we use the right contingency to exit from the transaction.
So if we get a bad inspection report back, and as long as we're in our allotted time frame, we can walk away and we're going to get our earnest money back.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's actually the contingency that we have that talk. We go and perform the inspection report, and maybe there's not much on there that would really take you away from the property, but maybe you had second thoughts, second feelings about it. So that would be an entryway of telling me that at that moment in time, let's get out of this so that your earnest money is protected.
So timelines are important. Having somebody that knows timelines, keeping you up to date. These are critical skills, and making sure that you have somebody representing you that knows this. The bottom line is, if you're working with a true professional, they're going to protect your earnest money through the whole process. Is there some ways that you do risk your earnest money?
The way you do risk your earnest money is if you release it early to the seller. What you're essentially doing is you're turning that earnest money into, you release it, it goes to the seller, and you have no protection on that. Secondly, you might want to put down 50% earnest money to really posture and show strong position. If you do default on it and you walk away, all that's at risk is 5%. They can only come after you for 5% of the sales price.
Is there any other ways that we risk our earnest money?
Yeah, buyers get cold feet and walk away with no reason.
Financing, waiving appraisal, right? That's another one too, because we don't have control over that appraiser. And a lot of times we don't have control on if they're in a good mood or a bad mood when they go over there and appraise the house. So it's really important to have your comps in line when you actually risk that part of your earnest money.
So it sounds to me like contingencies are a really good thing for buyers. We want to try not to waive as many of them as possible. Sometimes if you get in a competitive situation, though, that might not be possible. So just be careful and make sure you're working with somebody that understands those timelines. So this is how it actually works in Washington real estate transactions every day. And for more answers like this, make sure you visit themajornagroup.com/FAQ, where we break down the entire process step by step. Thanks for watching.